Hello and welcome. This is the review of the Blackberry Q10 in 2020. Can you actually use a Blackberry phone these days? I would like to start with the brief history. First Blackberry phone was released in the year 2003, and just a few years after, Blackberry became very popular. Unfortunately, the last few years was Blackberry having a hard time. The company was bought by the TCL, and the same time ago TCL announced that the production of BlackBerry will not continue any longer. But let's talk more about this phone. The design. The phone has a 3.1-inch Super AMOLED display and a resolution of 720 by 720. Display does have nice colors, but it is not very bright. Under the display sits the keyboard. The frame is made of aluminium and the removable back cover is made of hard plastic with small holes. This surface is quite durable and nice to hold. On the left side there is the micro USB and the HDMI port. On the top there is the power button and the headphone jack. On the right side there are volume buttons and a middle button, which serves as the play pause button, and you can summon the BlackBerry digital assistant with it. Loudspeaker is on the bottom and it is pretty loud and the sound is not bad. But back to that keyboard. In the past there were many types of keyboards in the phones, but from my experience the BlackBerry keyboard just makes the most sense. Landscape keyboards are nice, but if you want to use them efficiently, they have to be pretty big. On the other hand, vertical keyboard doesn't require much space, and it is just a better way to type, at least for me. BlackBerry really nailed the size of this keyboard, and the keys feel great. However, because it is a very different way of typing than the most people are used to, you have to learn it. And despite the fact that the autocorrect is really helpful here, I still didn't manage to type here as fast as on my smartphone. With that said, I think that the typing on a physical keyboard makes you type with less mistakes. Of course, that is not the only advantage of a physical keyboard. You can map shortcuts to the keys as well. With shortcuts you can open applications or do pretty much any action. So, the keyboard is really nice, but what about the performance and software? Well, this is where the problems start. Blackberry Q10 is running Blackberry OS 10, which is based on Android, a really old version of Android. It is not written anywhere, but I would guess it is based on Android 4.3 Jelly Bean, and that's not great. The support for this phone is pretty much not existing. For example, built-in Blackberry App Store doesn't have many apps. There is an Amazon App Store pre-install as well, but yeah, it is still not great. So, when you want to install an application, you have three options. The first one is install it from Blackberry Store or Amazon App Store. If you won't find the application there, the second option is downloading the APK file from the internet and installing it manually. But the problem is that the most applications does not support Android Jelly Bean, so they won't work. The third option is to put Google Play on the phone, and yes, that's possible and quite easy. I will link the tutorial in the description. Unfortunately, this does not solve the problem with unsupported apps. It just makes the process easier. Another fact worth mentioning is that the most Google apps such as YouTube or Hangouts just simply won't work at all. The software itself is actually great. It is well optimized and not that hard to use. There are plenty of options and settings to play with as well. The other major issue is the performance. This phone is powered by the Snapdragon S4 and it has 2 GB of RAM and 16 GB of ROM, with the option of the microSD card. And I have to say that this phone just feels really slow. And don't get me wrong, you can still use it, but it won't be a smooth experience. Application loading time is, well, not great, and pretty much any action requires a lot of time. Web browsing is a bit better, but still far from great. And yes, this phone is 7 years old, but for example the iPhone 5S, which is from the same year, is way faster, and so is almost every phone from 2013 for that price. The launch price of this phone was around $600, which is far from cheap. So I would expect a better performance. With performance comes battery life. On my unit the battery life was not great, but the battery is removable. So I ordered a new one, and yes, it is still not spectacular, but I would consider it fine and you can get through a day. Let's talk camera now. The rear camera has a resolution of 8 megapixels and you can choose the aspect ratio of the photos, but of course you will lose some pixels. The aspect ratio of 4 to 3 does have the best resolution. You can record a 1080p video or a 720p 60 frames per second. The selfie camera has 2 megapixels and it can record the video in 720p. Unfortunately on my unit it is not working. The photos from main camera are quite nice with rich colors and okay lighting and dynamic range. I will show a few samples so you can judge for yourself. So the answer to the question, can you use a Blackberry phone these days, is yes, of course you can, but using anything without Android or iOS today won't be great. Blackberry Q10 is an interesting device. The keyboard here is really nice and the camera is not that bad. But would I recommend it as a budget phone? I don't think so. Despite the fact that you can find one used for $40, I can't recommend it. And that's because of two reasons. The first one being the lack of support and applications. And the second is the iPhone 5s. You can buy an iPhone 5s for pretty much the same price. And the iPhone is just a better deal if you want a budget phone. Thanks so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave a like and bye.